Super cool radio.
Hey everyone, before we jump into the show, I want to tell you about our merch store on Threadless. Shop a wide variety of logos with multiple colors and sizes available for each design. Your support is greatly appreciated and helps us continue to make killer content like this episode. Please visit supercoolradio.threadless.com or the link in the description to shop now. Hello everyone, I am Matthew Thomas. This is Super Cool Radio. Hope you're ready because I have a great guest joining me at this time. Please welcome the CEO and co-founder of Vampr, the world's largest and most active social media networking for musicians. Please welcome Josh Simons.
Thank you for having me. Good to finally meet, Matthew.
It's very nice to meet you as well. I was really looking forward to doing this interview because I mostly interview musicians, so I was very eager to chat with you because you are obviously in the music industry, but a different side and aspect of the music industry.
I did start as a musician and have had a pretty good career as a musician, but yeah, I've definitely moved more into the tech side of things for sure.
I did want to cover that before starting Vampr. I was curious. So how'd you get started in the music industry? I know you kind of already led into that, but I'll let you expand on that.
Yeah. So I mean, I started managing bands at like the age of 19 and 20, but I was frustrated with what they would or wouldn't do. Like I heard like huge commercial potential, and these bands that I was managing were just very talented but very stubborn, and so I decided to set up my own artist project to try some commercial sounds that I had, and it was a good bet, and that these things went quite well in Australia in particular. And so yeah, I had a band that toured and got on the radio and TV and all that kind of crap, and we enjoyed sort of 4 or 5 years of quite big success there, but it didn't translate so well overseas, and it was not so much because of talent or quality or ambition. There just wasn't the team in place, and that's kind of where Vampr came from, was how can we create a platform that can help folks get together, teams, in a short amount of time, so that every time you go to a different city or country, you don't have to spend 5 years building up a network of people who can help realize your vision and get you to where you want to be. And so that's why Vampr exists. But, you know, since then, I've actually still stayed in touch with the musical side of things. I've had the pleasure of writing for people like Travis Scott and touring with people like Keith Urban. And so I've still been involved in music directly, but just less so, because funnily enough, running a tech company that supports millions of people is a full-time job. So that's what I do.
I can definitely imagine that, and I can definitely see that with everything you do for Vampr. But did you see yourself as like moving into that aspect of the music industry when you were a musician, or is that just like a natural progression?
Well, it's funny. The skills are somewhat transferable in that I think being a songwriter involves a lot of problem-solving abilities, and being a CEO similarly. So there's some skills that are transferable broadly, but no, they don't typically lead to each other. Most artists don't go on to become tech CEOs, that's for sure. In my case, it made sense. Someone needed to do it. I'm doing it for the industry, but most people hopefully don't need to create Vamprs. The whole point is to have this platform solve problems for folks in the industry trying to get ahead. And if I'm doing my job right, hopefully no one else has to make that transition from artist writer to tech person.
No, I know some people, they start off with like, a musician or one, aspect, and then they kind of like, I've always wanted to, be behind the scenes or be, manager or something like that. So I was just curious about you, if you saw yourself doing that or if it just kind of happened.
No, but I'll tell you a fun story. Well, it wasn't fun for me at the time. It was harrowing, but I'll never forget one of the last nights I was performing on stage. I don't know what it was. I kind of do. So Vampr was getting bigger. I think we had like 10,000 users at the time. Now we've got like 1.4 million, but still it was growing in size, and we'd started taking on shareholder money. And for folks listening, like when you take on people's money, you got a responsibility to deliver. You can't like fuck around with multiple projects. You've got to kind of commit at that point because you're playing with someone else's hard-earned cash. And I was on stage and I was playing with Keith Urban, and the show ended, the lights went down, and I was barely off stage in front of like 30,000 people. I just burst into tears, like uncontrollably. It came from somewhere up above. And I was crying, I think, because I knew that was probably one of the last times I was ever going to play in front of a crowd, because I just knew at that point, like, you've got to go one of two ways, bro. You've either got to double down on the music or finish what you started with the technology stuff. And again, when you've got people's money on the line, like you've got a responsibility. So the answer was always obvious. It was like, you've started this, you took it so far, now you've got to see it through. And that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah, definitely. That was, you had to commit to one or the other. And since obviously with the shareholders' money, with people's money, that it was the right decision at the time to do that.
Yeah.
But since, I think I glossed over a little bit about Vampr. So if anyone's like not very familiar or looking to join the network, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so it's predominantly a mobile platform, which means the best place to find it is the app stores. So you type in VAMPR. So Vampr, just in music, to vamp is to sort of jam around a set of ideas until sort of a group finds some sort of consensus. That's vamping. So Vampr is to collaborate with groups of people, and that's what our platform does. So we're like a LinkedIn for the music industry, because LinkedIn sucks for the music industry. It doesn't really solve any problems. There's not many musicians on there. There's not many industry people on there because it doesn't speak to the things that matter most to us, which is what's your vibe, what's your tribe, what's your sound, do we have common interests, that align and things like that. So that's what we specialize in, and that's where we're the market leaders in. And really the idea came about because of my experience. As I said, I sort of hit this point where I tried to transfer my set of skills in one country to a different territory, and it not so effective, and it came down to network. And so MySpace once upon a time solved this fairly well, but that sort of ended up going a different direction at a certain point after a certain Murdoch bought it, and nothing really ever filled that gap. So Vampr exists to fill that gap and create some value there for people in the music industry.
Yeah, definitely. I know exactly what you mean about LinkedIn. Like I'm not a musician, but obviously I have a music podcast, so I'm in that realm. And like it just doesn't, the vibe's not right on LinkedIn for anything music related. I think I get like one view a week on like my LinkedIn page for Super Cool Radio. So it's not the right spot for it.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like bespoke places for bespoke industries, right? Like the requirements of a creative person, whether it's music or fine art or graphic art or film and TV, etc. These are things that are based on the visual, the aesthetic, and all of that, and they're just not compatible with resume-based platforms like LinkedIn, and that's perfectly fine. The problem was that no one was doing a good job at being an alternative. the alternatives were shitty. And so that's, again, why we sort of came along.
No, definitely. You found you filled the void of a spot and a network for musicians who are looking to obviously connect and network with other musicians, and be the LinkedIn of the music industry.
That's the goal. I think we could probably say that in some way we've hit that, but our real job now is to accelerate it. It's not to get comfortable and sit back and say, job done. We've got a long way to go. We've got the vast majority of the industry untapped. We're at about somewhere between 1 and 10% saturation, which I know is quite a wide range, but I won't bore you with why that matters. But we've got some ways to go, and that's what we're working on. And I think like any network, the larger it becomes, the more valuable it becomes to every participant on there. And that's something that we try and remind our users all the time. Like, sharing Vampr with your network, even if you only need it for one specific thing, is beneficial because it can lead to job opportunities for anyone who joins. So we that's really the name of our game, is spreading the word and helping people get opportunities.
Oh, definitely. I know for me and like what I do, I know networking is extremely important. Finding the right people that you connect and work with, have opportunities, all of that. So I did want to ask about horizontal networking and how do artists harness the power of horizontal networking?
Yeah, so horizontal networking, which I think is something that I've heard brought up on like CNN last night or something. So it's gathering some mainstream recognition, but it's a way of doing business that's probably not so familiar to the West, but maybe more so in some developing countries. It's kind of irrelevant. In creative fields, it's this very simple idea, actually, of supporting people at your own level, because a rising tide lifts all boats. And what does that actually mean? I can only ever speak from experience, of course, but I'll give you a story from my career as a writer. So I was in England in 2014 at a songwriting camp. I was placed with someone that I was told was a YouTube influencer. Now, 2014 is a long time ago, so influencer wasn't even really a word, but I was put in a room with a kid I was told was an influencer. And then it turns out several years later, it's Troye Sivan. I mean, I knew that was his name, but now he's a big name, he's a star. Anyway, so I wrote a song with him that was pretty good. It didn't make his first album, but sure enough, a couple of years later, I got a phone call from the head of Universal saying it's going to be the winner's single on The Voice. And that opened a whole bunch of doors for me in my writing career. Now, at the time, I didn't know this kid from a bar of soap. He was maybe not the star he was today, but I invested energy into that person, and his career took off. And then because his took off and because something I did with him was associated, it helped my career. That's horizontal networking. It's stop looking to get ahead by going straight up, which is vertical, of course, networking, and something that like we have to spend a lot of time coaching our users on, because it's not uncommon for us to get a bad review on the App Store or an abusive email on our support line saying, I've been on this app for 24 hours. I ain't seen a celebrity. This is shit. Well, first of all, if you did see a celebrity, do you really think that they'd give you the time of day with an attitude like that? But also when you have nothing to offer them, literally nothing, like what value are you providing when your only service so far is showing up to an app? So it's an education thing, but it's delicate. You can't tell someone that they need to, you can't baby 1.5 million people or tens of millions of people, right? You've got to do this tactfully and in a way that won't get people offside, but also giving them genuinely good advice. Like, it's good life advice. Try and help those around you and you'll probably win. Try and only go up, and 1 in 1,000 will get lucky and it will work for them, but for the vast majority of people, it won't work. So we do try and push this idea of horizontal networking quite frequently.
And I really like how you explain that, because I know, obviously when I started, I was like, oh, cool, I'll reach out for this person, reach out for this person, and like this was like when I first started, so I was like, no one really knew Super Cool Radio, my name or anything, so yeah. I was like, okay, let me change tactic on that, because obviously that's not going to work. So, but with that, I think a lot of people just look like what's going to get like the instant star power, like who's the biggest name right now, and unfortunately, as you said, you might get lucky, you might be the one in 1,000, 10,000 who gets lucky. But most of the time, if you help out the people around you, you never know what opportunities might come. Might be a few years later, you never know. But most of the time, something good might come about it.
Yeah, well, I got two things to say to that. The first is, how cool is it that you and I are having this chat and here we are helping each other? Okay, so like the very concept that we're discussing is applicable to your own life story, and I think that's amazing. So awesome. I'm happy to be a part of your story. I hope you're happy to be a part of mine. And the other point you made about it taking maybe years but sometimes less, and everything in between, of course, it comes down to effort, right? And something I truly believe in, which is maybe a bit of a cliche, but I apologize, but if you put, and blame it on the jet lag, but if you put effort into the universe and in the world, typically speaking, you will get something back. And what does that mean? Like, quite often that just means showing up. Now, I've definitely learned, like, I can tell you the one way that you won't win. Like, here's a guaranteed way to fail. Sitting at home on your hands going, why hasn't X happened for me yet? Well, it's because you're sitting at home on your hands, not doing anything. And when I say not doing anything, it's like, go out there and make mistakes even. Like, just put effort into life, because you will get an output. An input will equal an output, and it might be amazing, and it might be challenging, or it might be probably something in between. But yeah. And so anyway, all of that is to say that you only get rewarded for the work that you put in. And that's directly related to that horizontal networking thing again.
Oh, definitely. I 100% agree with that. And what I do tell people is, like, no matter who you meet, you're going to learn either how to do something, a new way to do something, or you're going to find out the wrong way to do something. Like, that's going to be for everyone you meet.
That's the reward, right? So let's say nothing comes of it, but you realize, I should never waste my time on that again. The reward that you learned for that effort was, this is how I'm going to filter from now on.
Exactly, and that's a great way to look at it too. And I think it's always a good way to look at it. Obviously, with everything that goes on, like there's definitely right ways and wrong ways to do stuff, but kind of finding out. And I've talked to many different people. I've talked to other podcasters, been on other shows and stuff, and I go, okay, I like how you set that up, or I didn't really, that was a little bit clunky, or didn't really work on my end. So I know, like, okay, I won't do that for my show, but maybe I'll take use this element, but make it my own on my show.
Plagiarism is the greatest form of flattery, or whatever the fucking expression is.
Close enough, yeah. But I don't. I mean, to me, I don't just like directly rip stuff off, but like I might.
I'm just winding you up.
Yeah, I get, but no, for anyone listening or watching, but I try to put my own kind of style and swagger on it, just because I know, like, I know who I am, so it's kind of, how does this fit me? What I do like using is like watching, like, I'll watch like some old like TV shows, or like really obscure stuff, and I'm like, oh, I like what they did there. I'll take that element, and no one really knows that, like, oh, I just watched a TV show, or I watched an interview or something, and like people don't make that connection, because it's either very old or very obscure, and that's what I like about it. People think it's my stuff. It's kind of funny.
I saw a good meme this morning that was like, and I think it's been doing the rounds for a while now, but Christian Bale saying that he got inspiration for American Psycho from watching a Tom Cruise interview on David Letterman in '99. And so I went and watched the Tom Cruise interview this morning, literally, like, when I transferring between the international and domestic terminals at the airport, sitting there on my phone watching this Tom Cruise, and I was like, oh my god, that's Patrick, whatever the character's name is, or I can't remember. Anyway, but that's Christian Bale's character. Yeah. And yeah, we've gone off on a tangent, but I see what you mean. Inspiration is a powerful thing. I mean, that's what art is. Art is just assimilating all the inspiration that you've ever had in your life into something new, right? It's what you're doing as a creative, as a podcaster. You're drawing inspiration from, I don't know, Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony, whoever you're listening to, but your influences. You know, I am drawing inspiration from fellow leaders, the rules of the startup game, also drawing on my experiences prior to that as a musician who's written and worked with a lot of people who have been in the room with the best of them. That's all we do as humans. We're just drawing on our experiences and doing the best we can, right?
Oh, 100% agree, definitely. But since we're talking about inspirations, but also ideas and tools that musicians and people like ourselves use, I see a lot of people I've interviewed, either years ago, a few years ago, or maybe even recently, and I see like they're struggling now, like their content's not getting to they're not reaching people or stuff like that. So like, what are some of the best tools that independent musicians should be using today?
Aside from Vampr, of course.
Well, I mean, yes, obviously Vampr is a tool, but yes, besides that.
Yeah, of course. No, look, it's a weird time because COVID did put a massive halt to the live music scene, and in some ways hasn't fully recovered. Certainly traveling is trickier, and that means that markets a bit more saturated with the bands that are stuck in those markets that can't, basically import and export bands is not really a thing unless you're Coldplay and you've got the money to do that. So it's tricky right now. And so that means that artists are relying a lot more on online income streams. So that, in the last year or two, obviously NFTs is the big loud one that everyone's reading about and talking about, but not necessarily super rewarding yet for an early stage musician, which is what we specialize in. We specialize in people right at the top of their careers, not necessarily a few steps further along. So to early stage musicians, what matters? Good question. I mean, you're looking at things like distribution tools. Now, by the way, anything I mention here will probably almost certainly have some offering of on the Vampr platform, but there's plenty of alternatives too that's the great thing about Marketplace. People can explore freely. But yeah, I mean, early stage musicians basically need distributors so they can get their music on Spotify and Apple Music and increase their chances of being playlisted and things like that. They're probably looking at publishing tools these days, which are the services that collect royalties for the songs that they've written on various levels. Vampr offers a one specific thing to do with publishing called synchronization, which is the process of helping people get their music on like film and TV and video games and stuff like that. But yeah, there's plenty of services out there that help with that. And then, I think honestly, the other way, obviously, if artists are making money right now, predominantly from streaming and online sales and things like that, it all starts with the song itself. So what tool should they be using? I don't know, the most innovative, fun DAW that they can get their hands on. For many artists, that means moving on to things like Fruity Loops, which has grown in popularity a lot in the last few years. But for lots of people, it's often starts in GarageBand and then matures into Logic and Pro Tools and so on and so forth. So there's obviously a lot of tools out there. I think if I had any good advice, sound advice for someone getting started would be, don't waste your time on all of them. Like, get really good at one or two things. It's just good advice in general in life. You'll never be a jack of, it's a cliche, but it's a truism. Don't try and be a jack of all trades. Just really hone your skills on one or two of those things, and you'll end up being valuable to someone else who needs you to be good at those things. It's a kind of like a hack for getting your career into gear.
Definitely very sound advice, because you have to really invest your time and money into a certain aspect, whether writing, recording music, producing music, whatever like you really want to do and what you're the most interested in. Because graphic, I know bands do it their own graphic arts and stuff, and you can kind of sometimes tell, unfortunately.
Well, like every band has the Photoshop guy.
Exactly, but like this logo, like my Super Cool Radio logo, I know that I'm not that good with graphic design, so I was like, I had someone make it for me, and it turned out awesome. I'm very happy with it, but I also know what my limitations are.
Right, and that's the whole point of Vampr again. Is like, so I truly believe, and it's not really actually, it doesn't really even come down to belief. It's a fact that like any product, I was going to say productivity, but any product, that being a song, a graphic design, some other piece of art, is almost always the result of multiple people's input, right? Like there's not many things that are solo. Like singing on an acoustic guitar is solo. Some fine artists create on their own, but most art forms require collaboration on some level, even if it's just someone giving you the tools and the brushes or the paint or whatever it is, or the knowledge, right? There's almost some level of collaboration. And so, to your point, that's again why Vampr exists, is to facilitate that. Like you said, you knew that you didn't have the skills to make your logo. Vampr would have been a place. I mean, I don't know if you used Fiverr or turned to a friend from college or whatever, but Vampr could have been a tool where you would say, I'm looking for a graphic designer. You would put your other search parameters in and you would have gotten a result and gone from there. That's why we exist, to that very point.
And I think that's, obviously this was a few years ago. I was not familiar with Vampr, but I definitely, now that obviously I'm talking with you, I've, checked out the app and all that stuff. It is definitely, if I need something, in that kind of realm, I'm definitely more inclined to use it. And honestly, I'm going to drop some links for Vampr in the description of this podcast. Please check it out. But I do got a fun question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit as I'm wrapping up this interview. What has been your favorite moment, either from Vampr or your music career?
Oh, shit.
I have to close it out with, I've added this question from last season, obviously, to this season now, and it's always my favorite because I want to know like what's people's takeaways from their career.
Well, there's like it's a dangerous question, because I've got like personal ones that like I probably would never share, that are more like being in a room chatting with an old idol or something like that. That like, so I've got a few of those, but they're not. I don't think they're necessarily the funnest ones to share, and they also don't mean the most. Like they're just things that I get to think about. But look, for me, when I started off as a musician, I had some dreams that I wanted to achieve. I'll never forget the first concert I ever went to was at a fairly famous arena in Melbourne called Rod Laver Arena, where they play the Australian Open, and most of your favorite bands of all time have almost certainly played there. The first ever big concert I ever went to was there, and I remember being in the front row going, I'm going to play that one day, and I got to play 2 nights there. So that's probably my favorite memory. Yeah.
No, that is really cool. Like, from seeing, going there as a fan to being able to perform there, that sounds incredible.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably the top of my list. Yeah.
That's a good pick. That is a very good pick. But so, it's August of 2020 or 2022 right now. What are the plans for Vampr for that? To close out this year and looking into 2023.
Well, for those listening that have ever used Vampr, you'll know we have a feature called Vamps, which is kind of like our version of Instagram stories, but it allows people to share short snippets of things that they're working on. We're completely redesigning them from the ground up in a way that's really freaking cool. And so I can't wait. Like it's very much a consumer facing feature release that's going to benefit fans more than anything. And our platform's not really geared towards fans, although there are quite a lot of fans on there. So this is our first step into the world of like entertainment and slightly away from professional networking. So that's really exciting for us. So that's coming really soon, actually. And then the other really cool thing that's coming this year is Marketplace, which will allow people so people already do this on Vampr. So let's say, for example, Matthew, you say, I'm selling my expertise skills as a podcast producer. But right now in Vampr, you would list as a podcaster and someone else would list as someone looking for a podcaster. You guys would speak, and then in chat, you'd have to manually say, I can produce your podcast if you'd like me to, but it's going to cost you this. Well, what if we can do that in a safe and secure way where Vampr holds the funds in escrow until the job is done, till the parties have trust? Because that's already happening on Vampr, but it's not being regulated. So we're going to introduce proper, like, safe environment, like marketplace environment features, and like that might not sound super sexy, but it actually is. It's going to open up new ways for people to connect and collaborate faster, more efficiently, and so that's something that we're really passionate about and spending a lot of time on.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think just for business wise and to build trust, I think that is a phenomenal idea. That way, both parties, if they can get what they need out of it, but also if something does happen, that someone just didn't run off with all your money.
That's one of the main reasons we're doing it. Yeah.
So definitely, I look forward to seeing obviously all the great things you have in the works coming up, plus the way Vampr grows, and I do wish you all the best with everything. It sounds like you got some great things in the works for this year and already into next year.
We're always out there doing our best and trying to innovate. So yeah, we just thank our community for coming along for the ride, frankly.
Oh, definitely. Please check out support Vampr. As I said, the links will be in the description. Please check out this awesome networking platform. Josh, thank you so much for hanging out with me here on Super Cool Radio. Had a fantastic time chatting with you.
Thanks, Matthew.
And for Josh Simons of Vampr, I am Matthew Thomas, the host of Super Cool Radio. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Super Cool Radio. And remember, stay frosty.